Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Couple of Nukes. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Whiskey, and I never really talk about him on the show, but there was a peculiar roommate I had in the military. We'll withhold his name for his sake, but what an interesting guy. I've got stories and stories for days about him. And anytime someone said to him, what's up, so and so, he would say, mostly hydrogen. That would be his response. And so I share that story today because we'll be talking about hydrogen. And, I got a little nostalgic there thinking about how every time we would say, what's up to him, he would say, mostly hydrogen. And so we're going to be talking about hydrogen today, not in the context of greeting one another, but of what it can do for your health, physically, mentally. What are the new research studies being done about it? It's been a bit of a buzzword on the internet this year, and always growing and growing, more people looking into it. So we are here with the Hydrogen Man, who is going to tell us all about it, do some myth busting, get rid of some of those rumors and bring to light some scientific studies and encourage y'all about what we can do with it, what's the truth, how does it play a role with water by itself, pros, cons, and then his own personal journey. Greg, the Hydrogen Man, great to have you here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
For sure. So I'd love to get into obviously, how you became the Hydrogen Man, not a title just anyone can earn. So tell us a little bit about your origin story, where that began and how it led you to become the Hydrogen Man.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting it, but the simple answer is I got really sick. Ironically, I worked in the medical field for like a little over 2 decades. So it was a little ironic. And then it happened to me. And, me having a very good idea of what's going on behind the scenes in Western medicine. I should say before I begin, I do have a disclaimer. I'm not going to give any medical advice today. I'm not making any medical claims.
Right.
And everything are just opinions of the speaker and shouldn't be construed as claims for or against any product or products. All right. Sorry. Got to get that out there.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been a big deal lately. And people have
Yeah.
been talking hydrogen more as of late, but the truth is that I've been researching it and studying it for over a decade. I basically learned about it because when I got really sick, I got really tired of you look for answers for your health and everybody's contradicting each other. So you'll listen to maybe some podcast or some doctor that says, hey, you should eat nothing but vegetables. And then you got another guy saying, no, you should eat nothing but meat. And somebody else says, no, you should drink only this kind of
Yeah.
water. And there's no consensus. And that was very frustrating because I just to list off some of the medical issues I had because I was in really bad shape. One, I had tumors in my body. Two, I had a really major heart condition that was supposed to end my life. I'm not even supposed to be alive right now. I also had major inflammation, like autoimmune issues, gut issues. My immune system was really bad. And I had so much pain in my joints and ligaments that I literally would have stints where I literally just couldn't walk. And it got so bad as I was getting older where I literally couldn't grab like a remote control and try to change the channel on a television
Wow.
because that's how much pain I was in. And for a guy who used to be quite athletic, it was very depressing to not be able to walk, and pain medicine didn't even make a dent. Like if I could have taken pills and make the pain go away, I would have, but they didn't work. I would take pills and the pain was so bad. So it was really gut wrenching. It was horrible. One of the worst times really of my life. And nobody could figure out what was going on. And I obviously had a really hard time figuring it out. And it took a lot. And once I figured it out, I started using my protocols on a lot of people and shocked how well they were working. And so, I mean, my father was always a good example, but I've worked with so many people now in the last 10 years, and basically from people with arthritis, high blood pressure, cholesterol, issues with your eyes like glaucoma, macular degeneration. I've worked with people with Alzheimer's, dementia, even with a healing center now that's been using my techniques for skin disorders, diabetes. I mean, it's so crazy the things that these protocols have been used for. And what's more insane is the results. I never expected my protocols to do the things that they're doing, even to the point where quite a few doctors are looking at my techniques and protocols. And on top of it all, I've also been doing blood work for a long time. So I've had a lot of doctors contact me, literally asking me for help for their own family members, for themselves. And so it's been really, really wild. And good health is not so complicated, but nobody seems to want to talk about it a lot. I mean, they talk about it, but they're always trying to sell stuff. So you either got Western medicine that pushes a lot of pharmaceuticals, and then
Yeah.
the alternative field has some good stuff, but they're always trying to sell some supplement. And I was able to achieve a lot of this stuff with almost no supplements. I have very few things. Pretty much just vitamin D is the only thing that I supplement. Beyond that, it's just understanding some basic things about health and implementing them into your life. So anyway, not to go on too far of a tangent, but that's kind of the backstory. And I found my way back, and so I decided to open up a YouTube channel and share all the information for free. I don't charge for anything. I don't charge for subscriptions. Everything's free. And I really just want people to. I've seen how medical issues ruin your life, and because I experienced that. And so I just wanted to give back in any way that I could and really show people, the real secrets to the human body. And hydrogen obviously plays a huge role, because hydrogen is actually the source of all life and strength. And without hydrogen, we'd all be dead. I mean, you look at the sun is primarily made of hydrogen. And if we didn't have our sun or our star, the
Yeah.
light of our world, we wouldn't be here. So,
For sure. You mentioned protocol several times there.
yeah.
For us, understanding, is a protocol just the implementation of hydrogen water in a certain style, or what do you mean when you reference a protocol?
So the protocols, I have what I call different tiers, like different levels for different protocols, depending on how serious someone wants to get and how serious their issues are. So, like one example, I always use my father as an example because he told me, he said, "Look, I don't want to do any of your protocols." He said, "I don't want to eat the way that you do. I don't want to follow." He doesn't want to be kind of strict with his lifestyle because he likes to go out and have the cheeseburgers, the
Right,
beer,
right.
you know, use the microwave processed food, whatever. But he did tell me, he said, "Look, the only thing that I'm willing to do," he said, "is clean the water the way that you recommend." So just so people know, I am a water expert also. And so I know every water filtration modality in existence, and I know what it can and cannot filter out. I literally have a lab report right here, third-party lab testing of the stuff that's in our water, and it will shock you what's in our water. And to me, if you're not even drinking clean water, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
You're gonna have issues. I'm sorry. So that's the first thing. So if people just want to know what I use, it's a carbon distiller. It's the only way to filter out not only everything, but that includes pharmaceuticals, mold, viruses, bacteria, parasites, and fluoride, and all sorts of other contaminants, which you can't do with just your normal water filter. And if people want to look at what I use, it's a website called mypurewater.com. If they want a discount code, they can use the code uprising144K. But those carbon distillers will clean your water to the highest degree. That's what I use. They're American made, by the way. So they're not like cheap Chinese stuff. Everything I use is the only stuff I recommend. And I'm really big on clean water. I just can't emphasize it enough. Clean water, super important. So anyway, so as far as protocols, so like my father again, he got on the clean water. So like I bought him a carbon distiller, and then I got him a hydrogen machine, and that's the only thing he did. By the way, he only did the clean water with hydrogen, and we were all pretty shocked when his arthritis went away, any issues with blood pressure, cholesterol, his glaucoma, and his diabetes, basically. So that was pretty shocking. So that's what I mean by one style of protocol. But I work with people who have a lot of other issues too, that are very serious, including cancer, a lot of gut issues, people with chronic fatigue syndrome, people with issues from this little needle, which shall remain nameless, this little shot that everybody was getting. People have had a lot of issues with that,
Yeah.
and just stuff like that. So the protocols, then we get into quote unquote overcoming nutritional deficiencies and how to kill parasites properly and dietary protocols. So I have a lot of different stuff that you can either choose to do very little or do a lot. I don't know if that answers your question, but
It does, and I want to get into, you kind of hinted at it there, kind of touched upon it briefly, which is what's the difference between hydrogen water and then regular water. Obviously, some of us are on well water systems, some of us are on city water. We know that some water, variations have more minerals in them. Some of them have hopefully not lead or rust in them. Some of them have chemicals in them. So what is hydrogen water compared to, let's say, the average person's tap water?
So here's the thing. When you say the word hydrogen water, it doesn't have anything to do with the purity of the water in the first place. Because what we're doing is we're using water as a carrier. So it's like having a car. You could have a minivan or you could have a Ferrari. Either way, like which one, quote unquote, is, I don't know, better, faster, whatever. And with water, I always say you just want to start with the cleanest water. I know everybody argues about what the best water is. The path that I chose was I just want the cleanest water.
Hmm.
That's it. I don't want a bunch of trash in it. Don't want chemicals, pharmaceuticals. Let's just have clean water. Then what you do, because hydrogen, what it is, and we are talking specifically about molecular hydrogen. Molecular hydrogen is a gas. Okay. So what we're actually doing is dissolving a gas into the water. So think of carbonated water has CO2 gas, right? So this is there's different types of gases in the world. People just didn't realize it wasn't until the Japanese, thank God for the Japanese, who really discovered the power of hydrogen water or the power of the hydrogen gas in general, because you can also inhale the gas. The equipment that I use is a Japanese equipment. Most of the stuff's made in China, and I'm not a fan of the way they make their equipment. I mean, one example is like these little bottles. These are going crazy on the internet. And honestly, I wouldn't even use one. After knowing what's in these, the properties of the membranes and the metals, I just wouldn't use them. They're cheap, and you don't want to go cheap when you go hydrogen. You want the best, and that the same thing goes for the quality of your water. You want the best, and when you spoke about minerals, this is another really important subject. A lot of people don't understand or realize that we have different types of minerals. There's literally what's called inorganic and organic minerals. There's a difference. And so personally, what I've realized, and I've actually done for myself, and I've had a lot of lab testing to make sure my protocol works, is you actually get most of your minerals from your food more than your water. And the consumption of fiber is huge in regards to being able to get proper absorption of minerals. There was literally a research study that proved my theory, if you want to call it that. For me, it made perfect sense, and I was going off the Japanese data, but they finally did a research study that proved that basically I like to use my minerals with my fiber. So I make these smoothies and I load up on the hydrogen water first. These are all part of the protocols. And the results were just unbelievable, like unreal. Like I literally had a doctor call me with my last blood work. And she said, I'm a blood specialist. I've been doing this for over 3 decades. And she said, in all my years, I've never seen blood work that looks like yours. She goes, not one. She goes, it's insane. She said, I'd like to know what it is that you're doing because I'd like to apply it to my patients, my own family members, and even
Yeah.
myself. So these protocols definitely work. So anyway, so you don't need a ton of minerals in your water is kind of what I was trying to get at. You just want it clean. Not to say the minerals aren't important. They're super important. But you also mentioned well water. A lot of people think that their well water is much better. I used to think that too until I saw the lab tests. Well water tends to actually test worse than even municipal water. And so I was kind of shocked about that. So there's a lot of things to learn in the whole realm of water, hydrogen, and just health in general. A lot of doctors don't even know about this yet. But in Japan, they do. In Japan, a lot of the doctors do know about it. It is actually used in major university hospitals. So this is the real deal. I mean, this is something that we're not talking like 20 research studies or 100. I believe the number is reaching almost 2,000 research studies that have proven that hydrogen really is effective for numerous medical conditions. So it's amazing. It's hard to believe, but it's going to be coming more and more into the future and be more well known.
So if I heard you correctly, molecular hydrogen is a gas, correct?
Yeah, just like oxygen is a gas.
So if I'm tracking, you talked about water kind of just being the medium, the carrier. So technically, I could drink hydrogen soda. Is that correct?
Um, Technically, if you dissolve hydrogen gas into it,
Okay. Yeah, that was just my question. If water is a carrier for it, we could use other liquids as a carrier for it as long as the chemical reactions don't. counteract that, depending on whatever you have in it, as far as I know. I'm not a chemist, so I'm just, theorizing here.
Well, the only problem with that is when you have the proper equipment, you're not going to want to put juice or soda pop in it. You're going to
Yeah,
want to
of
put,
course.
yeah, the equipment's designed for water. And that's the way. So another way that I developed my protocols was by observing nature.
Mm.
So the power of nature big time. And that's actually how I discovered how to purify water, because I literally am mimicking nature. And have you ever heard of a place called Lourdes, France, by the way?
I don't think I have.
So Lourdes, France has this magical spring. It's water that
Okay.
people that they've been drinking for a very long time, and it makes all these medical issues just disappear.
Mm.
And I'm not making any claims, but you can Google it because that's literally what's been going on for a long time. First, they thought it was a placebo effect, but the results were so like unbelievable, even to the point where they had proof. So they actually sent a lot of scientists to study the water to see if there was anything unique about it. Nobody saw anything. Everybody said it's just H2O, nothing magical, until the Japanese got a hold of it. Because if you took that water and shipped it to a lab, the hydrogen gas would be gone by the time it arrives. So you wouldn't even know. And
Mm.
the Japanese ultimately discovered that that water had high concentrations of molecular hydrogen gas dissolved into it. And that's how they started doing lab tests on animals and saw amazing results. I actually wish I had some of the footage for you, but I show a lot of it on my YouTube channel, again, for free. I have live blood analysis. I have thermal imaging from major medical centers. This stuff's the real deal. And so I show a lot of this data on my channel, and they discovered all these amazing attributes to the water, and then they started to figure out what the best way to make it was, and that's basically how we got here. So in nature, it does it in water. It doesn't do it in soda pop or anything. It does it in water. So, I just
Yeah.
tried to make the best way possible.
So, what is the point of transporting this molecular hydrogen into our body? What can our body do with it that is so different or so miraculous?
Well, it does a ton of things. I mean, we're talking from it functions as what's called a selective antioxidant. So it's not a normal antioxidant, it's selective in nature. It's so tiny. A lot of people don't know that antioxidants are actually different sizes. So, like vitamin E compared to CoQ10, compared to glutathione, compared to vitamin C, they're all different sizes, but hydrogen is so tiny, in fact, tinier than all of them. It can literally go to the core of your mitochondria. No, none of those other antioxidants can do that. And
Mm.
that's important because the latest science and research is basically showing that a lot of the latest data is showing that a lot of medical issues are due to what's called like metabolic disorders. And the mitochondria, when you get hydrogen in there, which actually helps free up free radicals. So that's another thing, like ROS, for example, which is
Yeah.
reactive oxygen species. And hydrogen has a knack for that. It's been shown to be anti-inflammatory, which is obviously another really great function. It helps with cell signaling, which is also unbelievable. I've literally seen it help the pH of the blood so you can actually absorb oxygen more effectively, because we're already getting plenty of oxygen, by the way. I mean, we're breathing 21% oxygen right now. A lot of people don't kind of know that already. And when people have issues with oxygen saturation in their blood, it's not that you're not getting enough oxygen, it's that your body's not assimilating it properly. So something's wrong with your body typically. You can supplement oxygen sometimes, and that's okay sometimes. But the average person doesn't know. You can ask any doctor, they should know that oxygen is actually kind of toxic. You don't want to have too much oxygen. It's very oxidizing, and it's beneficial to an extent. But anybody who understands a proper protocol with oxygen will never want you to be doing it regularly. It's not the best idea. And hydrogen has also been shown to be amazing for the gut. I'm finding some really interesting information that it appears, I'm not going to make any claims, but this is really wild. Literally, it appears that it's so good for these gut bacteria and your microbiome in your gut. And I've worked with a lot of people with celiac disease, Crohn's disease, IBS, all sorts of gut issues, and their issues did go away. So it's pretty amazing. And been finding that it appears to feed specific gut bacteria that actually produce vitamins. So if you can imagine that, your body can produce a nutrient
Mm.
that you're eating. I mean, this is wild stuff, because I've been following some kind of, I don't want to say it's crazy, but I've been doing some little bit crazy stuff with my diet. and I wanted to make sure I wasn't nutritionally deficient, and
Right.
that's why I did the blood work. And when the doctor, like I said, the doctor who saw it, she just couldn't believe it. And then when she found out how I'm eating, she couldn't believe it even more. She said, "That's impossible. Like you're literally doing something that shouldn't be possible." So I think the new science, I think there's going to be more new and new data coming out, basically proving what I've been doing for quite a few years. And it's amazing for your health. Obviously, it transformed my life and many others. And just one more thing to answer your question too. Hydrogen literally appears to be the source of all life. Like you can't have life without hydrogen. It's just the way that it is. And so you really want that in your blood. There's ancient scriptural verses that say things like life is in the blood,
Yeah.
and you have to understand what are you putting in your blood. A lot of people don't realize we have gases that are dissolved in our blood, just like water, like just like this hydrogen stuff. For example, when you go to a doctor and they test what's called your oxygen saturation levels in your blood.
Yeah.
So oxygen is a gas, and you're testing how much of it is being dissolved in your blood.
Right.
So in your blood, you want certain gases and certain nutrients, minerals, and this is what's flowing all over your body, obviously in the circulatory system.
Yeah.
And hydrogen has even been shown to open up something what's called ghost vessels. So literally blood vessels that don't even get blood anymore. And you want blood supply bringing nutrients and obviously certain healthy gases, again, like the oxygen, the hydrogen, and whatnot. And so hydrogen has been shown to do that from the number one university in the world that researches hydrogen, which is called KO University. It's mind blowing. I mean, this stuff is absolutely next level.
So I want to tie it back to present day with what you're doing. You have the YouTube channel, and then Holy Hydrogen, as I understand it, is your company for putting forward more education on hydrogen as well as you have your own products. So I'd love for you to get into that.
Well, actually, I probably should clarify that. It's not my company and it's not my product either. So basically, Holy Hydrogen is a company. It's a hydrogen company that I'm a huge fan. The reason that I'm a huge fan of that company is because everything that I do, as far as like for my health, I don't do it based on like the most popular or, for example, have had a lot of hydrogen companies offer me money to try to promote their products, but I'll turn them down because one, I don't use their product. Two, I don't use their product for good reason because I believe that
Right.
if you do hydrogen incorrectly, I actually believe that it can do more harm than good. And I've learned that from looking at a lot of lab reports and learning how to make hydrogen properly. So I went out to find the best hydrogen machine in the world. And I found this Japanese device that was so impressive that I found out later that it's actually the number one hydrogen machine in the world from the number one company in the world. It's a Japanese company. I did not expect that. I was just looking at the numbers and the facts. And so when I found them, that's what I started to use. Now, I had used other machines throughout the years. Like I tried like the Kangen machines. I tried those little hydrogen bottles also. I tried hydrogen tablets. These are things that after I learned really what's going on with those products, I would never do those. I actually regret using those and putting them in my body, especially after the lab reports I've seen in regards to those type of products. And my medical conditions weren't going away. And it wasn't until I found this Japanese machine and it lined up with all the medical data. And I thought, wow, this is impressive. So I did try it. And that's when my issues went away, especially my heart condition. That was shocking. I was supposed to get open heart surgery. I literally just got a testimonial 2 days ago from somebody, same thing. They had a heart condition. They were told they were going to need surgery. They used the hydrogen. Their condition went away too. And they're writing up a full testimonial with all their medical records. I'm going to be releasing that video in the near future. So, and people need to understand that the amount of engineering it takes to do hydrogen properly, it's very complex. There's no way that I could do it. This Japanese company actually got huge help from huge industries like Toyota. If you can imagine, Toyota was involved,
Wow.
Yamaha,
Yeah.
some really prestigious metal company. So it's impressive. It's extreme, and that it's extremely impressive. And that product can make both the hydrogen water and the hydrogen gas that you can inhale. So it does both in one machine, which you don't see. I don't think I've really seen almost any machine that does that properly. So
Now, is there any advantage or disadvantage of, inhaling it in the gas form compared to drinking it as a gas in the liquid? Does that really impact anything?
Absolutely. So basically, there have been discovering that hydrogen water has certain benefits. For example, it appears it'll make your body produce ghrelin. Ghrelin is the precursor to HGH, which is human growth hormone. So, but the hydrogen gas inhalation doesn't appear to do that.
Hmm.
And they both have their strengths. My protocol that I created and later on was tested. So a lot of my protocols have been kind of quote unquote copied. People try to copy them and then they do lab tests and sometimes they even take credit for them when I develop them. But the point is using both together. So the hydrogen gas with the hydrogen water in a specific way. For example, the way that I use it is I drink the hydrogen water on an empty stomach and then I'll do the hydrogen gas inhalation afterwards, and it actually enhances it. So together, they even do more things that on an individual basis they don't. And so I just think that together is really ideal. Both are really important, but especially for like dementia, Alzheimer's, a lot of people with different brain disorders. I just had a testimonial, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago about a woman who had a stroke. She couldn't talk, she couldn't walk, and she couldn't dress herself. And doctors have been trying to get her better for almost 2 years with zero success. And this particular person found me. They got her on the proper hydrogen with the proper protocol. And I'm not kidding you when I tell you she is now walking, talking, dressing herself. And even her own doctor said it's an absolute miracle. They never thought in a million years that she'd make a comeback. And I'm actually going to be releasing a video, some pictures in regards to that testimonial soon. And those doctors are now wanting to know the protocols. They're like, how did you accomplish this? This is insane. So, this is something that the word really needs to get out, but I don't, a lot of people don't really know because they don't know how to either make hydrogen properly or use it properly because everybody, at least as far as businesses are concerned, they're more concerned about making money. That's why, again, that's why they sell products like these little bottles because they're cheap and they make big profits. And that's everything I've seen. That seems to be what the whole industry cares about, which is
Yeah.
very, you want the best, especially for people to overcome the issues that they might be dealing with.
I do want to you talk about production quality and concerns. So you talked about there are some dangers to improperly producing hydrogen. What would that entail?
Well, as far as what I've seen on lab reports, my biggest concerns are one, like if you're ever looking for a hydrogen machine, and companies are trying to hide this information now, but one, I wouldn't personally use any plated metals. So it's called plated or coated metals. I also wouldn't use any metal that's stainless steel. You don't want to be using stainless steel for hydrogen production. Anything that uses lye or sodium hydroxide, which is the main ingredient in Drano, believe it or not, you'd be shocked to find
Huh.
out people actually use that. It's insane to make hydrogen, in my opinion.
Right, but like you said, it's driven by greed and money, so they can cut corners and people will still buy it and think they're getting what they want. And before we started recording today, I was actually looking at some reviews on that small one that you have. People talking about after a few days it started tasting kind of metallic-y in the water or other stuff like that. So
That's exactly what I'm trying to talk about. I mean, look, I have a few of them. It's not like I never used them. I tried them, but they didn't fix my issues, and then they break
hmm.
down really fast, and then you can, the metal. But the other
Right.
danger that I didn't anticipate until there's been numerous labs who've contacted me and heard me speak, and they ran lab reports, and I saw what was in the membranes they're using. So now they're trying to hide the fact what membranes they use because on the lab report I saw stuff in those membranes that I would not want in my water.
Right.
So there's just a lot of things. No, not many people are doing it correctly. And if you look at the Japanese, I mean, just look at a samurai sword. They're like perfection and the level of detail that it takes to do it right. And hydrogen's like that. It's something that requires a lot of precision and detail and high quality metals. I'll just give you a funny example, Whiskey. There was a woman who contacted me who's like a naturopathic doctor, and her husband's a jeweler of all things.
Hmm.
And he always tells her, don't buy cheap jewelry. Don't buy coated or plated jewelry. Don't buy the cheap stuff. She found some earrings that she liked. She bought them. She didn't think it was a big deal wearing the earrings for a while, but she does blood work all the time because she's really into her health. And what did she find but heavy metals at high levels in her blood? And she's like, how did this happen? She eventually realized it was the earrings. So when it comes to metal, it's extremely important to use the right ones when doing hydrogen. in my personal opinion. Again, I don't make claims, but that's been what I've discovered through all my research.
Right, and we've seen studies, just people concerned about microplastics in the water, certain Teflon products, what that can use when you cook and scrape it off into your food, stuff like that. So it's something we've seen with food and water before, and now also, hydrogen water is no exception from that. But you said something, you know, if you're going to invest into your health, then invest properly. Don't try to cut corners with your health because that's going to get you on the back end. And so what you're doing now is spreading information about it. So we'll have your YouTube and your social medias in the description below for people to find out more about that. And that way they can find, we'll have also the Holy Hydrogen link. So if people want to check out that particular product, but again, to each their own, if y'all want to, find whatever works best for you, whether it's budget or health wise, or you find what you like. But yeah, Greg the Hydrogen Man, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing about, hydrogen water, and those products. And again, we'll have all your information for anyone who's interested in going over reports more in detail or contacting you and stuff like that.
All right, yeah, sounds good. And you can also put the links if people want. I always tell people you can also have clean water. Like if they can't afford the hydrogen, I always tell people if you can't afford to do hydrogen properly, honestly, I think it's just better not to do it. Just start with clean water,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that's always my personal perspective. But yeah, if you want to do it right, you should do it right if you want it to be effective and safe. So that's important.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you for coming on the show and spreading the word. And I wish you luck as you continue to guest on podcasts and other shows and platforms to, get this knowledge to people. And ultimately, if they use it or not is up to them, but you're doing your part by putting that information out there, and hopefully people will take advantage of it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thanks again for getting the word out.
Sailing through the ocean blue, nuclear reactors my crew, guiding the ship, the stars as our guide, through the waves we ride, jokes and laughter fill the air. On this voyage we have to share, working together, side by side, as one family we will abide. In the heart of the ship we reside, nuclear operators with pride, powering the vessel with every stride. Our mission, a source of great pride.